time, I was a member of the Psychic Research Society of Cambridge University. Not only did we investigate ghosts, which was a very interesting pastime for a student, but also we had other wonderful lectures by witches. In particular, every year we had a hypnotist come and give a demonstration. I tried to see if I was a hypnotic subject, but I wasn't. But you'd always find one student who was very easy to hypnotize, and the poor fellow afterwards wished he hadn't. Because on the first time they hypnotized this poor student, put him into a trance. They made him do all sorts of stupid things, but the highlight was the hypnotist told this student that when the hypnotist would touch his right earlobe, this student must stand up and sing in a full voice the British national anthem. Now that's not something you would do in the middle of a lecture theatre of fellow students, especially alone. And the hypnotist told him, I'm now going to take you out of trance. You will not remember anything I've told you, but later on when I touch my earlobe, you will stand up and sing God Save the Queen. And of course, being in the audience and seeing this, we couldn't wait until this hypnotist touched his earlobe. The hypnotist was a good entertainer because every now and again he'd move his finger to his earlobe and then take it away again, keeping us on tenterhooks. But then finally he did touch his earlobe. And this young man stood up in the middle of the lecture and started singing God Save the Queen. And it was hysterical. We all started laughing. And even though we were laughing uproariously, this student carried on until he finished the whole national anthem. And we asked him afterwards, why did you do that? Why did you humiliate yourself by singing God Save the Queen in front of everybody alone? And what was chilling, he said, he gave a reason. For him, he had freely chosen to sing. It showed me that what you take to be a free choice very often is not free at all. Your will has been totally conditioned. You did not have any choice to come here this evening. That's why you're here. You think it was you, your will. After a while, when you look very deeply, you think there's a whole web, a network of cause and effects, which make you do the things you do. Some people say, does that mean we shouldn't put any effort in our lives? My answer is, you've got no choice. You have to put forth effort. Your will is not you. You see that when you go into deep meditation, when you go beyond the will, when all will stops in the deep samadhi meditations. What that does is shock you. I gave that simile a few days ago of the driverless bus. When you try and find the seat of the will, where is this will coming from? Who is the being who is pulling all the levers? Who's at the driving wheel of you? Who chooses? When you find that, you find it's empty. There's no one at home. Ooh, that's scary. But what it does, it makes you understand a lot of the teachings of the Buddha, which before you may not have been able to understand. It's called Anatta, non-self. You find that which we call choice and will is completely conditioned. You are able to be brainwashed, and all you yogis have been brainwashing you for the last 7 days. Brainwashing to believe you can meditate. Brainwashing you to get a nimitta. And I've succeeded with many of you. I conditioned you. It was Ajahn Chah who conditioned me. Ajahn Brahm conditioned Ajahn Chah. And it all comes back to the Buddha. To show you what conditioning is, you only have to look at advertisements. Why do you have that fashion you have? Are you really free when you go into the shopping malls of what you actually choose to eat and choose to buy? I thought I was never influenced by those silly advertisements on the TV. Until once, when I was a student, I saw this advertisement. I still remember it. I've talked about it in my lectures many times. It was St. Bruno tobacco. Because in this advertisement, I was a student at the time, 18 years old, I think. In this advertisement, this ordinary-looking man, not particularly big or handsome, he was walking along the street of a town somewhere, alone, no friends, no girlfriends. But then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a pipe, and put in some St. Bruno tobacco. As soon as he lit the pipe, the aroma went into a bank which he was just passing. In the bank behind the counter was an incredibly gorgeous girl. And as soon as she smelled the tobacco aroma, she was smitten. She jumped over the counter and followed him, enraptured. It went past the newsagent. The same thing happened. An equally gorgeous chick stopped what she was doing and just ran behind him. After only 2 minutes of the advertisement, this ordinary-looking bloke was actually being followed by the most amazingly beautiful girls you could imagine. Because St. Bruno tobacco. And it's a really stupid advertisement. Who would actually believe that? I tell you who believed that. Me. Because I bought some of that tobacco. It never worked for me. Otherwise I might not become a monk. I don't know. No, I would have been a monk. Been a monk anyway. But why did I do such a stupid thing? I had been completely conditioned by the advertisement. Anyone in the advertising agencies knows how true that is. Those adverts work. But the point is, with advertisements, you don't realize they're working. You think that you can see and watch those advertisements and you're perfectly immune. Now you understand how your will is conditioned. You are not the person choosing. However, at this particular stage, because you've listened to the Dhamma, because you've actually heard some Buddhism, I'm sorry, but it's too late. You've already been conditioned to get to Nibbana. Because once those ideas are in there, you start talking about jhanas and nibbana, you've got a little taste of those things, you can't forget those things. That's why some people ask you, this is a deep teaching which comes from the realization of non-self, you are not the one who makes these choices. They say, can an arahat decide to come back? Can even a stream winner decide to have more than 7 lifetimes so they can come back and help others? The point is, there is no choice. Can't happen. You think, why can't it happen? When you understand what choice is, what will is, it becomes impossible. It's not up to you. You are part of a process, a natural process which happens whether you will it or not. You are just like a flower when it comes the time for you to bloom. You bloom. The flower never decides, I'm going to put it off till tomorrow, or I'm going to bloom today. When the nature tells it to bloom, it blooms. The same way when nature tells you you're going to get sick, you get sick. When nature tells you you're going to die, you die. When nature tells you you're going to get enlightened, you get enlightened. It's not up to you. Isn't that wonderful? Because it's not up to you, you can let go now. You can let go and stop worrying. Just allow it to happen. Oh, isn't that wonderful? That's the nature of the knower, of the doer, sorry. There's another part to the mind called the knower. Consciousness. Are you the one behind the eyes? Are you the one behind the ears? Are you the one behind the mind, the one who knows? In deep meditation we look upon that knower, and as we look more deeply, like looking at the cup, we see it more and more depth until we understand what it truly is. Sometimes it's like looking at a beach. When you look at a beach, this whole stretch of sand, it looks continuous. That's because you're not looking closely enough. It's the same when you look at your conscious experience. It looks like it's continuous, that you have been conscious, aware all day, without a break. But when you look closer at the sand on the beach, you find it's made up of particles of silica. When you look closer at your conscious experience, with the still mindfulness created by samadhi, you find you're not a continuous flow of consciousness. You are like the particles of sand, moments of consciousness, one after the other. And if you look even closer, you can see those particles of sand are not even touching. There's a space between them, a gap. If you look even closer, you can see there's gaps in your moments of consciousness, with nothing passing from one moment to the next. You see that consciousness is just a flow, that's all. Nothing there. Emptiness. You aren't even the knower, let alone the doer. That is the last citadel of the self, of the illusion, to see you're not the one who knows, you're not the one who does. But this is a process which goes on every moment of the day, which goes on from day to day, which goes on from year to year, which even goes on from life to life. A process. If you want to investigate that process more fully, you can look upon the Buddha's teaching of dependent origination. That's exactly what it is. Dependent origination was defining the process. But you can know it for that much. All your moments of consciousness are discrete, particular, like pieces of sand, with nothing going from one moment to the next. That's called truth, Dhamma. If you see that when there's no one in there, here, then you become enlightened. Then you can really let go. Why can you let go? Because there's no one in here doing anything. That's why you can let go. The Buddha often said, when there's a sense of self, there's a sense of ownership. That's what the self does. Big egos do a lot. Big egos own a lot. That's why the biggest egos want to own countries and become presidents of the United States. The big ego, because that's what ego does. It exerts power and ownership over what it thinks it owns. What do you own? You don't even own your body. What do you own? You don't even own your mind. Then we can let our body go, we can let our mind go. Isn't that wonderful? Scary for some, wonderful for others. I'll finish off with one of my favourite stories. Many years ago, when I was a young monk in Thailand, not so much a young monk, maybe 7 or 8 years as a monk, my teacher Ajahn Chah was getting sick. Eventually he was very sick and went into a coma which lasted for many years before he died. But this particular occasion, because he was sick, the Western monks in this monastery close to Ajahn Chah's monastery decided we would build him a sauna. The saunas were actually allowed in monasteries from the early days. We were going to build a sauna for 2 reasons. Number 1 was actually to look after our teacher, to increase his health. But number 2, and I must admit probably the most important reason, was as an opportunity to get our teacher to visit once a week. Because when he visited, he'd always give a Dhamma talk. So by building a sauna, we were guaranteed 1 Dhamma talk by Ajahn Chah every week. And that made it very worth it. So he would come every week to give a Dhamma talk, and we'd look after him in the sauna afterwards. On this particular occasion, Ajahn Chah gave this amazing Dhamma talk. I was so inspired after the talk, so full of just happiness and inspiration about the incredible Dhamma he was teaching, that for once I decided I would not go to the sauna and help my teacher bathe. There are other monks who could do that. I decided to go around the back of the hall and meditate, because I was just so peaceful, so inspired. So I went to the back of the hall, and as usually happens if you've heard a good talk, you get so much inspiration. I got a wonderful deep meditation. Really blissful, really still. When the meditation finished and I opened my eyes, the first thought which came up was, I wonder if my teacher, Ajahn Chah, is still in the sauna. Perhaps I can do some service for him. So I got up and started walking to where the sauna was in the monastery. I found I was too late. Ajahn Chah had finished his sauna, was already dressed, because I met him coming in the opposite direction. He was coming with 2 Thai men on the way to his car to go back to the monastery. So we were about to cross on the path. Ajahn Chah and his 2 Thai men and me coming alone in the opposite direction. Whenever you meet a great monk like Ajahn Chah, you've got to be very careful, because he can read your mind. And this was one occasion when he did read my mind. You could tell the way he looked was penetrating. You could feel him going right into you. He quickly saw I'd had a very deep meditation. That's why he started reading my mind. He suspected it by my smile. And he saw I'd had a very powerful deep meditation. So he decided to try and enlighten me. One of those marvelous occasions with your teacher. He saw you had the samadhi. He just needed to get the right trigger to enlighten me. So he looked me deeply in the eye. And he said, Brahmavangso. He caught me. And he asked me this amazing question. He said, Brahmavangso, why? He asked me the question, why? Probably the deepest question you can ever ask anybody. And I answered without hesitation, I don't know. Because I was a stupid young monk. I didn't know what he was on about. What do you mean the question why? And he laughed, like a great teacher does. He thought it was very funny that all his Western students who got all these great degrees from big universities were more stupid than a buffalo. So, he's laughed, and he stopped laughing, and he looked at me seriously again. So he stopped me laughing, and he said, Brahmavangso, I'll tell you the answer. So if anyone ever asks you again the question why, this is the right answer. Do you want to know the answer to the question why? This is what he said. He said, the answer to the question why is, there's nothing. He looked me in the eye again. Do you understand? And I said, yes. He said, no, you don't. And he walked away. That was one of the amazing questions. We were talking about anatta. There's nothing. Nothing there. No one at home. No one to worry about. You can let go of everything. So that was a great answer to the question why. Anatta. There's nothing. Do you understand? No, you don't. And that's a great way to end this talk this evening on anatta. There is nothing, and you still don't understand. But one day you might. Any questions on non-self? We got one over there. Do you want to get the microphone? Here you go. There's a microphone in the center there. Don't be embarrassed. There's no one there.
Ajahn, can you please explain further the process in the law of dependent origination?
More dependent origination. Okay, I'm going to sum it up very briefly, because there's 2 halves to dependent origination. For those of you who know this, it's like delusion. It gives rise to karma formations, which gives rise to rebirth consciousness, which gives rise to nama-rupa, the objects of consciousness, which give rise to the 6 sense spaces, which gives rise to contact, which gives rise to feeling, which gives rise to craving, which gives rise to attachment or grasping, which gives rise to the rebirth, or rather which gives rise to becoming, which gives rise to rebirth, which gives rise to